Hey guys, Loconate here, and today I'm going to be doing something really different. Today is sort of like a tutorial. It's more just me going over my controller setup, like how I've chosen to set up my controls for my controller, and why I chose the controls I did, because they're really weird, but I really like them and I think they're really good. Also, number two, we have a crotch reveal, so this is what my crotch looks like, and you know, I was hoping to save that for a little bit later on in the sub count, but you know, sometimes I just gotta show my crotch on the internet for views. Anyways, all shitty jokes aside, let me just quickly explain to you what my controls are. So the way we're gonna structure this is, number one, I'm gonna go over what my actual controls are, and then number two, I'm gonna explain why I like them so much and why I think they're good. And number three, I'm going to explain the thought process that got me there. Because I started off using default controls, just like everyone. Actually, I started out on keyboard and mouse. But after I switched to controller, I was using default controls like everyone else. And I kind of changed them around a little bit, and then I changed them around a little bit more, and eventually I ended up at the horrible mess I have now. So hopefully you get something out of this. Alright guys, so number one, I'm going to be going over my controls and over my grip, and you guys are going to see how both those work. So number one, for the standard stuff, I have R2 to drive forward. I use a PS4 controller, by the way. I have L2 to drive backwards. I have X to jump. And then I have this to move around and this to look around. And those are all defaults. And everything apart from that is non-default. So for boost, we have R1. And then for power slide, we have L1. For air roll in the air, we have L1. For air roll right, we have circle, and then for air roll left, we have triangle. And oh yes, there's also be prepared for this because this one's really weird. There's look behind on share. You'll hear about how I got it there in a while. So you can probably tell by looking at my hands already how I grip the controller, but I'll just be very concise about it. I use my middle fingers for the two back triggers. So my middle fingers are worried about just accelerating, deaccelerating the car. I have my front fingers on L1 and R1. So I have R1 worrying about the boost, and I have L1 worrying about power sliding and air rolling. And then I have my thumb covering the X button, which is jump. And oh, also I forgot to mention, ball cam is on square. And so I just lay my thumb on that. And so this is just kind of my default resting position. And the only time I change this grip is number one, when I use look behind me, I kind of claw my grip. So I use my index finger and I put it back here to look back. And then when I go up for an aerial, I'll sometimes move my thumb over here so I can tornado spin, which if you don't know what a tornado spin is, it's basically you just hold air roll right or left and then you move your joystick in one direction. Alright, so moving on to number two, I'm going to explain why I like my controls just so darn much. Basically, the boiled down reason is that every single finger has a pretty unique job. So there's no, so like on the default controls, you have like boost on circle and jump on X. And a lot of the times the best way to aerial is to jump while boosting, right? That's a fast aerial. And doing this with thumb is definitely possible, but I feel like you don't have enough control. Especially the moment when I noticed this the most was when I was dribbling, and when you flick the ball, if you boost through a flick versus if you don't boost through a flick, you can get drastically different results. And I found that having your thumb control both the boost and the jump just was a recipe for disaster. And it kind of, I don't know, it was just really gross, and I felt like I didn't have enough control over my dribbles as I needed to have. So in this similar vein of thinking, if you ever look up what most of the pros use, you'll find that a lot of them, like Cronovi or Dapper, they'll have standard controls, but what they'll do is they'll claw grip. So they'll use their finger on circle and their thumb on jump, and then they'll have their middle finger on accelerate here. And I found that moving boost up here, it's kind of like you're doing a claw grip. You have all the mobility, like all the same abilities as a claw grip, except you're not playing in this awkward position. And also, Cronovi has said when he started to claw grip, it took months to learn. And when I switched to this control layout, it only took me like a few weeks. So if even that, honestly, probably just a week. So I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. Like, it feels superior and it's easier to learn. So I don't know why you would choose to claw grip over a similar control layout to this. Alrighty, so we're on to number 3, which is me talking about how I got to the controller setup I got to. Because, believe it or not, this was based on a lot of rational decisions. It led to a really weird controller setup. So I first started out on keyboard. I had like 60 hours on keyboard, and then I switched to controller because all the pros use controller, and I was like, I want to be a pro. So I did that. And when I started out, I was using default controls, but I was so, like, I really wanted to learn what all the pros were using. And the one most common thing I saw, people would move their air roll and their power slide to one of these bumpers, right? Like, for example, Fireburner and Karma both do this. Karma has air roll and power slide on R1, and Fireburner has them both on L1. And I saw a bunch of other pros, I can't name any off the top of my head, that also moved their power slide and air roll to L1. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then I left boost on circle, jump here, and ball cam here. But then, like I said, around 800 hours in, I had that dilemma that I told you about earlier, where I felt like I didn't have enough control over my dribbles as I would have liked. Because, like, my thumb was worrying about boosting and jumping at the same time. So I looked up, I did a ton of research. The pro who inspired me to move my boost to here was, first of all, I went into Blueeze's stream, and he talked to me a bit about it. And he told me about Garrett G's controls. And Garrett's G's uses very similar controls to what I use now, except what he does is he has ball cam on triangle, and he has still air roll and power slide over here. So it was boost here, power slide here, the normal stuff here, and normal stuff here, minus the boost and power slide, of course. And that also felt kind of weird, because when you have ball cam on this, your thumb is kind of across these, and you sometimes fat finger these two buttons, and I didn't like that, right? So what I did was I found it most natural just hold my fingers like this, and so I just moved my ball cam from here to here. After that, I was kind of like, well, I wanted to do air roll right and air roll left, but I didn't really have anywhere on my controller to put it, so I was just like, just, you know, fuck it, stick it on circle and triangle. Because, so now what I do is when I jump, I've said this before, but I move my thumb over here so I can air roll. And I find that works out pretty well for me. And then finally, for the look back function, what happened was I watched a KevPert video, and what KevPert does is he puts it on, you push left stick down, and that looks behind you. And I tried that. I did that for like 500 hours, and I really liked it. But the one thing was I would fat finger it sometimes. I would fat finger it when I was going up for an aerial or something, and I felt like it would reduce my accuracy. So what I did instead was, I don't know, I just put it here because it just felt right to me. And, oh, if you're curious, I also put scoreboard on R3 push down, and also, obviously, ball reset in training. So that's about it for my personal control layout. I'm gonna say a few things generally because I know this is kind of gonna be a short video. Hopefully you still get something out of it. But number one, if you're thinking about changing your controls, like maybe there's something you don't like about your current controls, absolutely do it. I did it at 800 hours and it was really not that hard for me to switch at all. The one thing I will say, if you are going to switch, try not to switch more than 2 buttons at a time, because if you switch more than 2 buttons at a time, your hands get lost a bit. Like, your hands are already a little bit lost because they're trying to figure out where the new buttons are. And the more buttons you change at a time, the more that's going to be amplified. So I'd say if you're going to try out my control layout, I would suggest not switching to it immediately. I would suggest, like, maybe you're on default, like first moving this over here. Do what I did. And then, yeah, eventually move your boost up here and your ball cam over here. Also, you want to really, when you're choosing your own controls, you want to ask yourself, what do I want my controls to accomplish? So for me, the reason why I had to switch from my original control, or my controls of having all default except air roll and boost over on L1, was because I didn't feel like it was giving me enough options in dribbling. Now, if you have that set up and you feel like that doesn't affect you at all, like there's no part of your game that's being affected by your controller setup, then by all means, you should keep it. But if you feel like there's some part of your game that could be better and like that your hands feel weird doing because of your controller setup, then you should probably think about changing, and you should think about what kind of controller setup will encourage the kind of behavior I want, the kind of mechanical behavior that I want out of my hand. Okay, so this was kind of a short video, and I thank you for sticking it through. And as a little bonus, I'm going to show you what some of my car colors are, what my car design is. Because I've gotten asked this, not a lot, but a few times. So here's the colors. Oh, that's not right. There you go. And then we have this. You want to make sure you use metallic pearl, otherwise you're not going to get that nice fluorescence type stuff. By the way, these car designs were mostly... This particular car design was inspired by Lichinio. And I'm going to show you the other car I mostly use. It's this one. And we've got... Yeah, so it's snakeskin. But normally what it is if it's not on snakeskin, what it is it's pearlescent, and we've got this color, we've got this, we've got this. I kind of like the dark red and dark brown type thing. But yeah, I got a octane snakeskin, and that looks great in my opinion. But yeah, guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Not really a serious tutorial, just kind of a short little blurb about my controls and why I use them and stuff. And I mean, hopefully it helped you. Maybe it didn't, but if it did help you, feel free to leave a like. And if it didn't help you, you know, maybe if you subscribe, there'll be more content that'll help you in the future, you know? I don't know, man. It's up to you whether you want to subscribe. But regardless of whether you choose to or not, I hope you have a great day, and I thank you very dearly for watching. Peace out.